Hey everyone, it's Alan again. I just kind of wanted to add to the last video where we used this using floats page. Talk a little bit about width. I didn't cover it in the first video, and I kind of feel like I should, but I like the first video, so I don't want to re-record it. So, long story short, I'm going to do a little bit about width here and floated stuff as well. So, if in the first video you kind of notice I use float left with 33.3%, and what that does is it makes the three-column layout. If I actually were to go all the way in and look over here on the right, you would probably see a little sliver of blue showing through, and you might be able to catch it up on the video. I can see it, but you might be able to catch it. 33.3 is kind of setting it to 1/3, 100%. 33.3 is 1/3 of it, so that makes it into the three columns. I could also do 50% if I wanted to do two columns where they're floated and now they're set in a two-column layout. Now in here the widths don't really matter as much because it's more of a chance that you actually land somewhere in a reasonably same difference. For instance, these actually all line up very well and don't have any problem with the underlying colors coming up, well, except for here at the end, I suppose. It's all about judging your content and how much content you're going to have. There's, like I said, there's different ways to do it. Back to the width thing though, is I'm set to 50%, but you can see there's not a lot of room between the column space. The way that the percents and widths and how containers work is that there's a couple things that all add together to make that 100%. So I'm mainly just using width 50% here, but if I were to add some padding, like 2%, 0 and 2% padding on this element, what would happen is that they wouldn't fit. Well, I say that, but then they don't go and do it. No, because I didn't actually hit the thing there. Okay, padding 0, 2%. 0 on top and bottom, 2% on the left, 2% on the right. There we go. So why did my things not start floating into two columns like they were before? The answer is because technically you're setting this to 54% because there's 2% on the left, 2% on the right, plus the 50% width. You can't go over 100%. So if I'm using 4% padding, then I need to subtract 4% padding from the width in order to maintain my two-column layout. See? So now that I'm floated back into two columns, but say I wanted to show a little bit of that blue color in the middle, then I would also have to add a little bit of margin. A little on top. Well, let's go 2% all the way around. And same thing happened as before, is that these sections all went back into a one column because I'm going overboard. So basically I take another 4% off and I go down to 42% width, and that should get me back to a two column layout, this time with a little bit of space in between each of the sections. So it's important to keep in mind that these three values all add into what's considered the 100% width. So if you're going to start breaking out width and margin and padding, then you have to kind of make it equal to 100%. Unfortunately, the border, I haven't talked about the border, but adding a border in does not help things either. So even if I were to add a one pixel solid border and solid red, so hopefully I'll see it, I go back into a one column layout again. And the reason is that technically the border is not margin, it's not padding, and it's not part of the width. It's actually kind of something in the middle. It's kind of its own thing, and it adds into the 100% as well. Unfortunately, you can't use a percentage width for the border attribute. So you gotta kind of take that one pixel out of your width or your padding or your margin. It doesn't really matter, but you have to account for that extra pixel being used somewhere in your other attributes in order for your stacks to line up the right way. So I'm going to go to 41.5% and see what that does. And that gets me back into my two column. If I were to do a right click and inspect on it, You can kind of see the different colors in the top. I'm kind of hovering over a column, but the colors in the top, the orange is going to be margin, which is where the blue shows. And if I were to go to column 1, yeah. So anyway, the orange is the margin, and the greens are kind of padding set. So my question is how much do I have to account for? If I go to 41.6 and hit save, is that what breaks it? No, it's not. That's not quite what breaks it. And is it 41.7? Let's see, maybe. Yep, that's it. 41.7. So I could go back to 41.6 or maybe even 41.65. I think doubles are used, so even that's pretty close. Long story short, all 4 of these attributes all kind of add into what's considered the 100% width of a container. So when you're setting your margin and your padding and trying to set widths in your floats, you need to make sure that you're only adding to 100% as well. So if you're, it's easier to use. It's the new way is to really use percentages instead of pixel widths, and let your wrapper container do the floats. Anyway, that was just a little bit more to add on to, making sure that you're choosing widths that are appropriate. Now you can always go under. So for example, if I take the margin off, technically I'm only added up to a little bit now. I'll get it back out of the page, but I'm still in a 2-column template. As long as I don't go less than 33%. Once I start going below the 33%, then I'll start trying to fit into the page. Now this will actually put me, should be somewhere into a 4-column, I think. We're pretty close. 3-column if I 21. Actually, if I took that off, I'd make it. There'd be 2% padding on each side. Or am I not doing my math right? 2, 4, 6, 8. Well, 4, 8. Something. Let's do 1. It's 2% per each element. That's up to 8%. And 25, 17. Sorry, doing math in my head. Pretty close. Probably wasn't right in my head, but maybe 18 will break it to a 5-column. Yeah, 17 would have been a 5-column. Anyway, it just takes a little bit of math, a little bit of knowledge, and you could go with the 0.2s, 0.3s, and try to get that right up there to the end so that the underlying blue color doesn't show. But in most pages, you're not going to use such harsh differences in your colors, so it might not matter a whole lot. Oh, so close. In most popular websites, you'll probably see that there's always maybe a little extra pixel left over in some containers just because of that, 33.3 versus, you can't actually get a rounded number all the way down. Yeah, that was a little bit too much. 17.6 makes it 5-column with 2% padding on each side. Anywho, hope that was a little bit helpful in kind of learning how widths work on containers, and why maybe you can't float a certain number of containers the right way. Anyway, hopefully this is helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. Goodbye.